Lovely here to you're listening to Radio Sunshine's news bulletin for today. Nominations have now opened for candidates for the pending national general elections that will be held on the 12th of April. The Chief Electoral Officer has issued a public notice for nominations for the village constituency seats and Commonwealth seats ahead of the elections, less than a month away. For village seats, any two registered electors from within that village are eligible to nominate only one candidate per elector. For the Commonwealth seats, any two registered electors from any constituency may elect only one candidate per elector, and in both instances, the candidate nominated must also consent to their name being put forward. Candidate nominations close on Thursday, the 27th of March, and in addition, registrations to become electors are also open until the 1st of April will set guidelines and criteria that must be met. It is also compulsory for those 18 and above to register as an elector, but optional whether they actually want to vote. Fishermen in the village of Avasale have voiced concerns following an incident where a fisherman needed to be towed in 3 times in 1 week. New fisheries have held training sessions with the fisherman who was unfamiliar with the new engine that had been bought for his boat. New police and New Fisheries are discussing the issue and incidents, as well as a few minor miscommunications regarding the incident. Moving on to our news stories from the region. The Solomon Islands has welcomed the outcome of the Commonwealth Ministerial Action Group on Fiji during the 43rd CMAG meeting that was held in London. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and External Trade, Clay Furrow Solaway, said it is important that the Commonwealth not only recognise and acknowledge the progress made by Fiji, but also give concrete actions in recognition of what Fiji has done over the past years since significant progress has been made in its roadmap to return to democratic rule. During the suspension of Fiji from the Commonwealth, Solomon Islands remain engaged with Fiji both at the bilateral and multilateral level through the Melanesian Spearhead Group. 2 Fiji NGOs that met with the Electoral Commission on Wednesday described the meeting as positive as the country prepares for polls, which is due before September at the end of this year. The meeting allowed the NGOs to make submissions to the Commission on issues they considered pressing in the lead-up to the general elections. Fiji Women's Rights Movement Program Director Tara Chetty said the meeting was a great opportunity to meet the Commission and get updates on the progress towards elections. Fiji's President Ratu Ipeli Nailatikau, in his first state visit to Palau, has called on leaders to consider strengthening cooperation with Fiji. In his address to the President of Palau, Thomas Remengesau Jr., during a state dinner, Ratu Ipeli elaborated on Fiji's initiative of the Pacific Island Development Forum. With Palau a member of the Pacific Islands Forum, Ratu Ipeli explained the disparities and advantages for the nation when joining the PIDF. Fiji's attempts at nation building was also outlined by Ratu Ipeli, who explained democratic progress to elections and the independent foreign policy, which includes peacekeeping duties and Fiji's volunteer services scheme into the Pacific. Former Papua New Guinea Treasury Minister Don Pollier has finally broken his silence on why he refused to sign loan instruments of 1.23 billion Australian dollars to acquire 10.1% share in Oil Search. The Canberra MP said the best business and commerce knowledge he had, his view was that the commercial viability of the purchase of Oil Search Limited shares at $8.20 is a bad decision. He said even if it claimed to be a good investment, there remains no credible information to substantiate the argument, as no due diligence was done on the business transaction. Pollier also called on Attorney General Kerenga Kua to say whether he gave advice to the government leading up to various breaches of the laws to secure the $1.22 billion loan. The company's announcement made it very clear that the government share placement was conditional on the government's obtaining the necessary approvals to proceed with the placement and finalizing financing arrangements to pay for the shares. The Conference of the Pacific Community Chairman and Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Ratu Inoke Kambuambala, has confirmed Fiji's support for the Secretariat of the Pacific Community as part of Fiji's commitment to its role as chair of the Conference of the Pacific Community. Minister Kambuambala confirmed Fiji's willingness to propose that SPC be granted permanent observer status at the UNGA. Fiji has also offered to facilitate contacts between the organization and new and emerging donors. The judicial inquiry into the treatment of transferees for asylum seekers on Manus Island has been told that the centre is more like a prison camp and that the detainees at one time were fed with worm-infested bread and cereal. That's the testimony of 3 of the 4 transferees that gave evidence before the National Court in Lorengo. The 4 transferees are Al-Hussein Mirpada, age 26 from Iraq, Barat Ali, age 30 from Afghanistan, Abdul Qadir, age 22 from Somalia, and Benan Sata, age 28, a Kurdish national born in Iran. The 4 said they were treated like criminals and were thrown into Manus without their consent. The court has adjourned, and 17 more transferees are expected to tell of their experiences at the centre. National Alliance Party's parliamentary leader Patrick Pruitt has returned as treasurer as Papua New Guinea Prime Minister Peter O'Neill moved to file vacancies in cabinet following last week's reshuffle. Tambul Nebilier MP Benjamin Poponawa and his Kiribina Goodenough colleague Douglas Tamru Riesa were also sworn in at Government House as the Ministers for Labour and Industrial Relations and Forest and Climate Change. Concerns amongst coalition partners who spoke to the Post Courier on the condition of anonymity on the tendency by the Prime Minister to overrule and bulldoze major policy decisions were also refuted, with O'Neill saying consultation was a key feature of his government. Papua New Guinea's Foreign Affairs Minister Rimping Pato confirmed that the review of Papua New Guinea's migration legislation is nearing completion and will be announced soon. The new migration laws will drive growth and connect Papua New Guinea to the outside world once ready. Pato told the Post Courier that the flexibility of these laws will readily help the PNG LNG project, which is now approaching completion, and small and medium enterprises which need flexible immigration processes responsive to the needs of businesses. There was a meeting of the steering group for the review of migration legislation convened and chaired by Chief Migration Officer Mateo Rambura. A separate briefing session will be held to advise major business groups of the proposed changes. And the state government in Pohnpei saw an increase in their respective shares under the compact sector grants when the Federated States of Micronesia national government put into effect a new grant distribution that reduces its 10% share to only 5% pursuant to public law. In light of this law, as well as the fact that the states have recently identified a long-term fiscal framework that in part addresses how to deal with the decreases in compact funding, President Manny Mori has urged the state governments to consider setting aside their share of the 5% into their compact trust fund. In a recent meeting, the Chuk Governor Johnson Elimo and House Speaker Innocenti Onisom expressed a willingness to allocate its new money into the trust fund. However, a formal communication on that has not been provided. And those are our news stories here on Radio Sunshine for today.